Hi, good afternoon. We are here at the Town of Ossining Organic Garden in Cedar Lane Park. This fabulous garden that you see behind me is the work of many gardeners that sign up through the recreation program. But I'm not the one to tell you about that, so I'm going to pass it on.
Hi, my name's Andrea Ersling. I've been gardening here since 2009, and I can tell you a little bit about the history of the garden. It started in 2009. It was the brainchild of Henry Atterbury, who was one of the previous directors of the Parks and Recreation. He wanted to make a community garden accessible to anyone, and his vision was not perfect at first. When it started, the garden had 10 plots. They were all located at the far fence, the fence that's close to Cedar Lane. There was one spigot, which is the one that you can't see, but it's in the other direction, and there was one hose that one had to actually run across the whole garden to water the garden. But it turned out that watering wasn't necessary because that was the summer of like nonstop rain and cold weather. It was a disaster. It turned out that the water table was too high, and most of the plots were underwater for the whole summer. So Henry approached master gardener Donna Sharrett, who graciously redesigned the whole garden as you see it now, and we have now 45 plots, I believe, various sizes. It's accessible to experienced gardeners, beginners, and even people in wheelchairs, because we have some raised beds and gravel that they can roll around. The work was done, and some of the financing for the expense, because it was considerable, was by a developer, because there's a program by which developers do either a cash or in-kind donation to the Recs department. So that worked out perfectly. And so many years later, we're still enjoying this garden. I think I'm going to pass on to Chris Davies, who is another longtime gardener here. Maybe not quite as long as me, but pretty long. So here's Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Davies. I got involved, I guess, with Donna because she quickly recognized my first year here that I'm a weedaholic, certifiable, which she appreciated. So, whenever she needed help weeding, she kind of, Chris, come on over and help me with the weeding. So, we've been with Andrea and Mary and some other members. We've been gradually getting together an informal committee to keep things rolling, set some general standards, so we can keep the place looking nice and so everyone loves to come here. Some people come and go. Some people find it's gardening sometimes it takes more effort than they were willing to put in, which is fine. Other people stay for a long time, which is also fine. We share lessons learned, how to deal with some insects and stuff. We had, for a few years, we had some problems with Mexican bean beetles, so for a few years, we've had to say no growing of beans, unfortunately, because I love growing beans. But hopefully, after a few years, they will have given up and gone somewhere else, and we can try growing beans again. And then we have a notice board. It puts up notices on what are good things to plant month by month, whether it's by seed or by transplant. So we share the knowledge, and we have a Facebook site to share the knowledge. We have some community. Actually, Andrea, you can talk about the community stuff.
Oh, well, we like to get together whenever we can just to relax and have a drink and eat a little bit. So we do that sometimes during the summer, every month or so, once a month. In prior years, maybe not so much this year, we've done field trips to other gardens. And what else have we done? We had an incredible fundraiser. Was it last year? Yeah, last year,
yes.
Where we had some music and food and raffles. It was a lot of fun. Maybe I'll pass it back to you, Chris, just to talk about the process for how one could, if someone's interested, what they would do to to sign up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there's an annual sign up each year. You sign up at the community centre. Usually it's the beginning of the year. Notice will go out for gardeners who are currently here if they want to come again next year. Do they want to keep the same plot? Do they want to upgrade from a small plot to a larger in-ground plot? Or do they want to go down to a smaller plot? And then whatever plots are not being reused from previous gardeners, they're then open for new gardeners. And you sign up at the community centre, you pay a $20 fee plus a membership fee. That covers the water, the town provides mulch and wood chips and some compost. So for $20, that's a pretty good deal. uh, yeah, and the plot,
And
yes.
sunshine, which a
And
lot of
this,
us don't
yes,
have.
yes, it's a perfect place for tomatoes do really well here, strawberries do really well here, and sunflowers, as you can see, do really well here. Um, and then we have at the beginning of the season in March, yes, generally around March, isn't
Yeah,
it? We have an orientation session. It's mandatory for all gardeners, even renewing gardeners. Just going through what the rules are as far as for example, the decision that we were not going to be growing beans this year because of the bean beetle. That's one thing we have to make sure we cover. Going through what the community chores are. Every gardener is assigned a community chore that they're required to do in addition to keeping their own plot weed free. Um, and we go through what the process is for our own composting. Just to remind people what things can go in there and what things should not go in there. And then it's, everybody go out there and have fun. Some people like to be very social when they're here gardening. Some people like to come here and just have the whole place to yourself and just enjoy the birds flying around. I'm one of those. um,
So why
yeah.
don't we hear from one of the gardeners?
Sure.
One of the newer gardeners. How many
Yes.
years have you been here?
I've been here for 2 years.
Okay.
So my name's Marilyn Miller, and I had wanted to be a participant in the community garden from whenever I first heard about it a couple of years ago. Um, and so 2 years ago, finally did, and primarily because I always grew up having a garden. My mom gardened, I grew up with it, and where I live now is beautiful shaded maple trees, as so many of it. Huh?
deer too?
I don't so much have deer because of the layout of my house on a hill and everything, but I get 90% shade. So I've tried growing stuff there before, and the soil isn't really that good. I have a beautiful sage plant at my house. Absolutely, huh? You can't make a meal out of it. No, it's wonderful for adding stuff in. So I had wanted to do it for a number of years, and I finally signed up, and there was a plot available. And last year was a little bit of a trial and error. I planted pumpkins, which was fun, mini pumpkins, and variety of things, kale and tomatoes and all. I think one of the things I haven't talked about quite so much that I just wanted to touch on, one of the reasons I wanted to do this and be a part of this is with a little bit of, sweat and elbow grease kind of thing, with a little bit of effort on your own, you can grow your own food and know exactly where it's coming from. The garden is completely organic, so we don't use any kind of harsh pesticides in any way. In fact, one of the things I'm going to do momentarily here, I don't know if we're going to show that or not, but we use, like, for example, for pest control, one of the things we use is a product called neem oil that has been used, I guess, in India and Ayurvedic medicine for centuries, something like that. But, so we're not spraying any kind of nasty stuff, and it's just really rewarding to come in and see. A couple of weeks ago, I cooked it, so I can't show it, but I literally had a 4-pound zucchini. It was the size of my lower leg. It was a 4-pound zucchini. But just to be able to come over here and just be, whether it's lettuce that I had a ton of earlier this year, or the tomatoes, the zucchini, to come over and say, I'm just going to pick my food and go home, and you don't have to worry about where's it from, is this being shipped in from South America or from China or anywhere else, what kind of pesticides are on it, what kind of soil conditions, all that stuff. You just feel really good about eating very healthy and very clean.
Thank you. And
I'm Louise Lord, and I've also been here since the beginning. Um, the beginning, it just looks so different now. The beginning is the town had just put strings to separate the plots. And the plots were just right next to one another, and there was no space in between them. And yet I grew corn the first year. I mean, we grew gardens. The whole front area, you had to wear, boots because it was always. So they've done a lot of work here through the years. And I think the one thing I appreciate is the community spirit. I think that's important to mention because, like, I can go away for a month and come back and my garden is still there because people have made signs that say, I'm away, please water, or I'm away, please help yourself. So gardeners pitch in and help one another, which I think is really wonderful. And also we use the Facebook page. Like if you see, like I saw some tiny little eggs on my squash, and so I quickly posted that so that people would know to watch. And so if anyone gets any kind of pest or anything, you put the word out. So I think there's a very strong community spirit here that it makes me keep coming back also. And the fact, yeah, that you have full sun and water and everything you need is here. So.
Right, it's a perfect way of saying it. It's a happy place. It's almost, and I will say that I was here the other day, and it was raining out and it was misty out, and it really did look magical in that. Now, while this is again, understanding that the village and the town of Ossining they use the same recreation department. So you go to the Village of Ossining Community Center if you're interested in signing on to the waiting list to get a plot. Now, if you just want to admire the garden, there's a fabulous track around the pond here in Cedar Lane, right? And you can walk that and you see the garden as you're walking by, so you get to appreciate the beauty of it with little to no work. And it is also right outside of the Cedar Lane Arts Studio, which we just filmed the other day, and we'll be putting that one on very quickly because we're trying to get their programs going. So this is a program that I would say you do from March through October.
Is when we usually have our cleanup and put everything to bed. We usually have a party for that.
So that you could hear that, it's October is the time where they do their cleanup. They put it to bed. They put the beds to bed for the winter. And if you come then, it looks like everybody's just waiting for the next growing season to come. So it's pretty fabulous. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk around, and if you would walk around with Catherine. Catherine's doing a fabulous job over here. Don't take that out, Catherine. And what we'll do is maybe you could say some of the different vegetables and the different flowers. I mean, there's a flower garden right over here we'll start with tomato plants in it too. But it's like a butterfly magnet, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's one of our, apart from growing our own plants here, one of our main things also is to attract pollinators. So we plant native plants in the perennial beds we've got here and the bed just outside the fence. They're native plants to attract the butterflies and all the native bees, and it's amazing how many there are. And also it attracts some of the plants, the flowers will attract the native birds around here. So you might hear and see the goldfinches twittering around because they love these sunflowers. And over on the far side, if we get there, we have a native honeysuckle on the fence, and the hummingbirds have been loving the flowers there. It's been lovely to watch them. That's in addition to the butterflies and then all the bees. So
possibly in the future we could do a bird watching little club here or something, just not just in here but all around. Now we're going to have 2 of the 5 committee members walk around and go through the gardens and explain some of the vegetables, some of the flowers that we have here, and how exciting this garden really is.
In the perennial garden we've got here, some of the plants we've got, the white flowers tall white feathery flowers on the right, that's cosmos. Yes, blueberry. Where's the blue? Oh, blueberry bush behind it. That's a high bush blueberry bush. Nice sunflower, late sunflower, just starting to bloom behind that. The pink flowers are phlox. These that look a little weird These are actually butterfly weed. The you can see some orange flowers there. Some have already gone to seed, but some flowers are still coming. These are what the monarch butterflies are totally dependent on. So we like to grow these as much as we can. This is pink yarrow, also lovely native. What else do we have? This is another uh, milk. Milkweed, yes. Butterfly weed is a milkweed, but this is a different variety. It grows taller. But again, you can see the seeds are very much the same. They have these tall pods and then they open up and then these things just float in the air. Very pretty. This is actually an invasive, which we will be cutting away soon, but the bees actually love the flowers, so we've been leaving it there. What else do we have? Yes. With, if you can just get it, you actually have a lovely little butterfly on the coreopsis here. You see him? Unfortunately, I don't know what that butterfly is, but he's lovely. So this is pink coreopsis. There's a yellow variety as well, but we got the pink variety here. Yeah. Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia. And I don't see any echinacea. Oh yes, there is some echinacea over there. Yeah, yeah, coneflowers over there. And we did actually. We got here. We had some bee balm. It's done flowering. So we just got the seed pods there now. That flowers earlier on in the summer, and bees love it.
Yeah, this happens to be somebody's actual vegetable bed, but they're a flower lover, so they've planted looks like cosmos and I don't really know what the zinnias. Sorry, zinnias. I always get them mixed up. So we got tons of butterflies here, and I know this. I've been watching this plot. They've had an excellent season for vegetables, so they're just doing their flowers thing now. Yeah, they're really gorgeous colors.
This orange one is a fritillary. I know that one.
Oh, the one in the back. Yeah.
But the black and yellow one is beautiful.
This bed here is the herb garden, which is a communal garden, for anyone to help themselves if they so desire. This is chives, and it's alive with bees. You can see right now because it's flowering. It's going to seed. These are actually garlic. These are garlic. No, these are garlic chives. That's the garlic one. You can tell by the leaf is a flat leaf. Yep. And next to it, we have thyme, this big sprawling thing, which needs to be cut back because it's really too big. And next to this, these were really pretty like a week ago. This is oregano. These purpley colored flowers. And continuing along, this used to be a giant chive plant that we wanted to take over the whole bed, but we had to cut back, so it just looks a little messy right now. This, I believe, is tarragon, or is it rosemary?
Tarragon.
Yeah, okay, tarragon. And another chive plant, and this is what they call creeping thyme, which is really nice because it just grows. You can grow it on a lawn even, and as you walk on it, it releases a really lovely scent. And more chives. We have probably more chives than we need.
These are lovely chives.
Yeah,
I've never seen so many.
yeah, and all kinds of bees. They're all different. Wow, it's hard to believe.
In this area, we've identified more than 110 different species of native bees, and counting.
So, and then right behind the chives, this is chamomile, which has little daisy flowers, which if you dry, you can make tea out of. And this is a lavender plant, which is past its prime, but it's really beautiful when it's blooming. So that's the extent of our herb garden. So if we walk over into this corner of the garden, we have our homemade compost bins. Originally there were 3 bins, but we now have 4 because we found that it's easier to swap things out if you have 4 boxes. Basically, people are supposed. There are rules about what goes into the bins. You know, non-diseased plants, nothing that's no flowering weeds. Of course, no garbage, no plastic or anything. But as a composter, I can tell you that we have to be a little. We have to actually double check because it doesn't always work that neatly. But we do create maybe not enough compost for our to give everyone, but enough and it's good quality, very good quality compost. We used to have, I don't know, I forgot to mention when we talked about the history of the garden. This used to be the town pool that the garden is on top of. And right here was the pump house of the pool, which was what we used for our tools. It was our garden, our shed. We had some water issues, and they had to tear down the shed and to get to the pipes. So now we are without a shed. That's why we have a lot of tools and things lying around. We are looking forward to having a new shed at some point. We're anxiously awaiting that.
Working on it.
Yeah, it's been a while, and we're hoping that happens, for next spring.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least you can see the flowers anyway. Shall I start? So what we're looking at here is it's a native honeysuckle, unlike the imported Asian honeysuckle. And this year it's been really good. It's been flowering all through the summer, which has been beautiful. You can see some of the flowers still there now. And earlier on in the summer, it was lovely to come in and see the hummingbirds. I know I was doing some weeding right under there one day, and this hummingbird came up, didn't mind me being there at all, and he was sipping on every little flower as I was just standing there watching him in total awe. They're wonderful little creatures, so I love watching them. I'm really happy with this, that it's taken off so well there now. I think it's well established.
When the garden was redesigned in 2010, we went from 10 plots to 45 plots. I don't know the exact numbers off my top of my head, but we have large in-ground plots, as well as small raised beds and then taller raised beds. And it seems that the more experienced gardeners prefer these in-ground plots because they have more flexibility with how they are laid out. They're not confined to a box. They can, make different configurations. So here's a plot that has some beautiful tomato plants, a bunch of marigolds in the front, and this is nasturtium, which is edible. You can throw that in your salad as well as being very pretty. Very tiny sunflowers in the back, which are it's strange because most of these are giant trees. So that's a small flower. And I don't see the peppers, but I believe you. I'm sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, there's small peppers there. Yep. So that's a good plot. Somebody's very productive. They're going to have a lot of tomatoes. Probably have had quite a few already. And if we just look down the line, you can see the next plot has a giant sunflower plant and looks like kale in the front. And I'm not sure if that's to the left, if that's some kind of squash, perhaps.
Yeah,
Although, this small plant. I have to tell you that this gardener spends her weekends upstate, so she is not here all the time. So you might see things that should be harvested or maybe need watering or something like that. We have a system here, like a kind of a buddy system. If you're going to be away, you normally ask a friend or a neighboring plot to water for you when you're gone, and that works out pretty well. I know for myself it's worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can pan all the way down to the far corner, but if you see that very frothy looking green foliage, looks like a big shrub. I believe that's asparagus, because I know someone was starting asparagus there.
Yeah.
Asparagus is what you plant when you're committed to coming back, because you don't get anything for a year or two. You have to plant it and wait. So somebody's been very patient, and that plant looks really incredible.
Yeah.
The staples that are planted here, of course, tomatoes, as you can see. People plant kale, carrots, peppers, lettuces, salad things. A lot of flowers. People love flowers, and as Chris said, we like to attract the bees and the butterflies. Herbs are good. The herb garden has a few things, but some people like basil. Basil is an annual, so you have to plant it every year. So if you wanted that, you would probably have your own stash of it.
Yeah, we're just trying to think about what other. I mentioned before beans also. They do well here. Lots of different types of beans. So I think we're all looking forward to being able to grow beans again. Maybe next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem with having it like an infestation of a particular kind of bug is that it doesn't just stay on your plot. It seems to want to go everywhere. So if you have an infestation of bean beetles, somebody, 500 yards away will probably end up having the same problem. So we had to just say none. We had to say stop growing them for a while. Changing the subject, I was just going to say that one thing that when what we do at the end of the season, after you're pretty much done with your harvesting, is we put our beds to sleep for the winter, but we sometimes plant cover crops on them, because the cover crop is like peas or some kind of grasses, oats. It grows, and then it actually enriches the soil. When it dies, usually dies back in the winter, it actually goes back into the soil, and it's almost like an organic fertilizer. As well as keeping the ground. It's always a good idea to keep your ground covered with something. You don't want it to be exposed to the air and the snow and the cold. So that's something we'll probably do in October. Thoughts?
Yes, I mean I agree with and if people are not growing cover, then as you said, they'll put kind of straw or mulch down. There are some plants that will stay in over the winter, strawberries for example, garlic, yeah. So there are some plants that we actually will overwinter and do fine. I discovered this year carrots actually overwinter very well. Much.
Cedar, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah, so that was a pleasant surprise. So gardening, I think for everybody, it's a growing experience. Sorry about that, but it's a learning experience. Things change from year to year, but that's the fun part. You try things out. Oh, that works, and oh, that one didn't work. All right, won't do that next time. And a lot people have different things that they want to play with and try. So that's great fun. Yeah. That bed over there looks nice. And here, actually, if you want, here's an example of somebody who's away. I think this is Andrew.
This is Andrew, and
yes.
this is asparagus, so we can throw
Yes.
them up close.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
This is the asparagus plant. It's really pretty.
It
as
is,
well
yeah.
as being.
Yeah, and it's really good. He gave me some in the spring.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah, that was really tasty.
Wow, look at this sad little tomato. Looks like it's been held on with like a twist tie.
Yeah.
You also have a Girl Scout. I think this is the Girl Scout.
It's got.
Fiddler.
Where are we?
Are you leaving now?
4 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Where's the Girl Scout one? It's got a here that's it. Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's the Girl
I was thinking the
Scout one.
sign. Yeah, the one with the thingy in there. So this is this is the Girl Scout one with it.
I can't really tell you much about it because
Yeah.
you're not personally involved in it. But yeah, we have a Girl Scout troop. One of the gardener's daughter is a Girl Scout, and her troop comes here. And they work together. The very first year the garden started in 2009, there was one gardener, Tian. I don't know her last name. She grew strawberries, and from there, just about every plot in this garden has strawberries, and they're all the descendants of Tian's strawberries. They just took a little cutting, and then they do so well here. They keep producing. In fact, even now people are still harvesting ripe red strawberries, so it's incredible. So Marilyn said that she would like to show us her plot, so if you have a minute, we can go over there.
Hello. So this is my plot. I've been a little aggressive in planting vegetables because, like I said, I really love growing my own food. So we start with the zucchini. I don't know if you can actually see, but I do have a couple of ones in there. What's amazing is that we'll look at a zucchini right there, if you can see it. Yeah, there we go. And then we've got another baby one over there. Anyway, you've got these zucchini, and I'll look at that and I'll say, I'll give it a day or so, and in 2 days it'll be 4 pounds. I've got a couple of zucchini. I've got a couple of different varieties of grape tomatoes there. I have some corn that's not doing nearly as good as the corn next to me. I have okra, which I'm originally from Texas, so that's kind of a national vegetable in Texas, but it's not grown up here, but I love it. So I have okra. And then, just to kind of show you how much you can do with a 12 by, what is it, 12 by 5, 12 by 4? How big is the plot? 4 by 12, yeah, so 4 by 12 plot here. So some of the other things that I have, this is supposed to be a poblano chili pepper plant that's really not been very good to me, but it is a poblano chili plant. I have some Lacento kale. I have a jalapeno plant. You're standing on the cord, just there you go. I have carrots. I have beets. I picked the first crop, so that's the second crop of beets in there. This is some Swiss chard, another kale plant. This is Chinese pak choi, which is just a leafy vegetable. You've probably tried it. If not, do so. We've got some more kale, some peas, green peas over here, some onions, and I just put in, so September would be time to put in starting putting in the fall crop. So I just put in some lettuce and spinach and a little bit more of the pak choi that will hopefully grow up through the beginning of November. So that's kind of an example of how many different things you can get into a tiny plot. And and underneath my zucchini, which you can't see, I actually have a ton of strawberries. So part of it is to figure out how to kind of manage the garden from season to season to season so that it's producing for you the entire time. And then as you're here from year to year, kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work, what am I going to grow again, what is more challenging to grow, and then working to maximize the plot. But again, it's just so wonderful to come out here and with such a small amount of space, be able to say, okay, I've got enough zucchini or I've got enough tomatoes or kale or whatever to make a salad, make a lunch, just really help supplement your grocery buying and really take the place of a lot of the mass-produced food that you might get at a grocery store.